Welcome, everyone. This is Brother Doug. I'm with my sister Shoshana, our sister Sadie, our brother Tobias with us, our brother Dennis, and our sister Sally. And we are celebrating the new moon today. It's the first day of the new month of Yahuwah's calendar and Yahusha's calendar. So we are going to do a study today, a new moon study today. And this is going to be like an introduction for people that don't know about the new moons and how to keep them and stuff like that. So we're going to start right away here. I'm going to put it on share screen right now. And so here we go. We're going to start off with actually, let me see here. I'm going to actually go to the verbatim one I want to go to, and it's Psalms 104:19. We're going to start off with that. And we're going to actually, let's see here. It's Psalms 104:19. He appointed the moon for seasons. If you go into the original Hebrew here, it says, for moon, it says Yarach, which that's Strong's H3394, Yarach, okay, which literally means moon. So literally it would be he made the Yarach, the moon, for seasons. Now, if you look at the original Hebrew for seasons here, doesn't mean what we think of as season. It's more referring to the appointed times. His appointed times in Leviticus 23, Moad. So the Moadim. So he made the moon for appointed time. So that's Psalms chapter 104, verse 19. So now, after that, we're going to go also to Psalms, the book of Psalms, chapter 81, verse 3. And I think I'm going to actually go to my eSword here. This is where I have, I definitely like the way the Aramaic says it here. In this translation is known as the original Aramaic New Testament with Psalms and Proverbs. So it has the book of Psalms and the book of Proverbs with the Aramaic New Testament. And it says, call with the trumpets at the first of the month at the new moon, and at the full moon on feast days. So there's a separation there. The full moon is talking about on another feast day, and then it's talking about at the new moon. So on all the other feast days, it's at the full moon, and you blow with the trumpet at the new moon also. So basically that's what Psalms 81 verse 3 is saying. So again, so that's talking about the first of the month, the new moon. Okay, so now we're going to go put it on share screen again, and we're going to go back to Blue Letter Bible, and we are going to go back to the search here for new moon. Okay, Numbers 29, verse 6 says, besides the burnt offering of the new moon and the meal offering of it and the continual burnt offering and the meal offering of it and their drink offerings according to their ordinance or law for a sweet savor, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. Now, right here it's saying there's a law according to the new moon that that the Levites, they would be taking the sacrifices and all of that. So practically what they're doing on the new moon is what they would be doing on the Sabbath day and on the other feasts. So what's the right word to call it? There's something in common with the Sabbaths and the feast days that the new moon has, that there's sacrifices on that day, that you're supposed to be offering a sweet savor to Yahuwah. So that's Numbers chapter 29, verse 6. And it's funny because it says here, besides the burnt offering of the new moon and the meal offering and burnt offering and the meal offering of it, according to their law or commandment. So this should be in the Torah. We should be able to find the original commandment of this, but we can't. So obviously that's my thesis today, is that, or our thesis, I should say, our group's thesis is that people have been monkeying around and taking stuff out. That whoever, had the scriptures first before they got into English were, taking stuff out of scripture, which Yahuwah forbids. And he actually, there's the book of Revelations, it says, those that take even, one thing out of the book of prophecy of his book, he's going to take their part out of the book of life. And if they add to it, he's going to add the plagues to them. So It's a serious thing to take away from his word. So now the next one we have is 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 5, which says, and let me see here, it says, chapter 20, verse 5 of 1 Samuel says, David said to Yonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go that I may hide myself in the field to the third day at evening or at sunset. So again, there's even a precept here that the new moon, about something about the new moon where it's important that he's there at sunset. So this is where we get the idea that the new moon would be at sunset. It would be sunset to sunset like the Sabbath. And then you got the very next verse that says, if your father miss me at all, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me that he might run to Beet Lechem, his city, or it should say Bethlehem. I don't know why it says Lechem. For it is the yearly sacrifice there for all the family. So again, that's, I guess, referencing towards the new moon. Let me see here. And let me see.
I'm sorry.
Here we
the 14th. I'm sorry, what? Oh, yes, right. Yeah.
This is what I was trying to figure out. All right.
Sally, you got something to say? I heard Sally.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, I'm fine. Thank you. I was clearing my throat.
All right. So here we go. We got Ezekiel chapter 46, verse 1. Thus says Yahuwah Elohim, the gate of the inner court that looked toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be opened, and in the day of the new moon it shall be opened. So that's Ezekiel chapter 46, verse 1. And then if you go down to verse 6, it says, and in the day of the new moon it shall be a young bullock without blemish, and 6 lambs and a ram, they shall be without blemish. So verse 6 is talking about the actual commandment of the sacrifices. Let's actually get some context here. Let's go to a couple verses earlier here. And so here we go. It says verse 2 of chapter 46 of Ezekiel, and the prince shall enter the way of the porch to the inner gate, and shall stand at the entrance of the gate, and the priest shall prepare his whole burnt offerings and his peace offerings, and he shall worship at the entrance of the gate. So this is actually talking about also a day of worship in context too. Then shall he come forth, but the gate shall not be shut till evening, sunset. The people of the land shall worship at the entrance of that gate, both on the Sabbaths and at the new moons before Yahuwah. So obviously, if you got to be worshiping at the gate, you can't really have a job that day. You can't be working that day if you got to be doing that. And if you're offering sacrifices to Yahuwah, obviously you wouldn't be able to work on your regular job on that day. So then it says in verse 4, the prince shall offer burnt offerings to Yahuwah on the Sabbath day, 6 lambs without blemish, and a ram without blemish, and a freewill offering, meat offering for the ram, and a meat offering for the lambs, and a gift of his hand, and a hin of oil for the meat offering. And on the day of the new moon, a calf without blemish, and 6 lambs. There shall be a ram without blemish. So very similar sacrifices on the Sabbath and the new moon. Then it says in verse 7, and a meat offering for the ram, and there shall be a meat offering for the calf as a freewill offering, and for the lambs according as his hand can furnish, and there shall be a hin of oil for the cake. So basically you get the point. There's something very similar about the Sabbath day with the new moons, the first day of the new month. So then if we go to Amos chapter 8, verse 5, it says, saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn or wheat? Because corn is like a lot of times, sometimes in the scriptures, corn can refer to, grain. And the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit. So basically, Yahuwah is rebuking Yashrael in Amos 8:5, saying, why are you like unrighteously waiting for the Sabbath and new moon to be over to buy and sell, basically. So that was Amos chapter 8, verse 5. And then even the New Testament here, we have a verse that says, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a set apart day, talking about, the Moedim there, or of the new moon or of the Sabbath days. And something I want to make mention here, a lot of people trip up at this verse. This is not saying that don't let no one judge you to not keep these days, but it's saying do not let outsiders judge you in keeping these days, basically. If you read on in the next verse, it talks about but the body of Messiah. So basically, so
The Tanakh, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I was only using. Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I meant the Brit Hadashah. There's even a verse in the Brit Hadashah about the new moons that Paul talks about. So basically, this was talking about in respect of actually keeping the new moons. Basically, don't let outsiders judge you. A lot of people want to spin that. A lot of the Christian interpretation would be don't let anyone judge you in not keeping them. But we know better. So Isaiah 66 verse 23, I think is the last one I have here for this portion. And it says, it shall come to pass that from new moon to another and from one Sabbath to another shall all flesh come worship before me in Jerusalem, says Yahuwah. The Septuagint actually has what the Masoretic text lacks in this verse. The Masoretic text will just say, worship before me, says Yahuwah, but the Septuagint actually says in Jerusalem. So that means that on the new moons and the Sabbaths, they would have to be in Jerusalem and come worship before him at the temple, obviously. This is in context of the millennial. When the millennial reign comes, the verse before talks about Yahuwah is finally going to bring back the real Levites. So anyways, I don't know if anyone else has anything to add that I might have forgotten. Those were the main ones I came across in this study so far.
Dennis, I think you have, don't you?
Oh, I've got some. I think I got it at the shop. Love the scriptures on the new moon. I had written down.
Left.
Okay, I think there's two more. There was only two I forgot here. Oh no, I talked about 1 Samuel 20 already. Okay, yeah, because they're giving me limited verses here from Blue Letter Bible, so I'm trying to see if I missed any.
I know there's other verses that put the new moons and Shabbats together.
Let's see here. Let me go to. I'm going to search on my sword right now. Sometimes that will help.
So you thought about Numbers 10, 9, and 10?
Numbers 9 and 10. No, we did not go over that one. Let me go to that. Numbers 9 and 10. So Numbers chapter 9, verse 10. Okay.
Number 10.
Oh, number 10. Numbers 10. Okay. All right. Yeah, here we go. That's the one. All right. So sorry about that. Sorry for the delay, people, but not that organized today. Numbers chapter 10, verse 1. And Yahuwah spake unto Masha, saying, make you 2 trumpets of silver, of a whole piece shall you make them, that you may use them for the calling of the assembly and for the journeying of the camps, and when they shall blow them, all the assembly shall assemble themselves to you at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. If they blow out with one trumpet, then the princes which are heads of the thousands of Yashrael shall gather themselves unto you. Okay, this is really not talking about the new moon, but this is more like.
Well, later on it does.
Okay, let me see here. Because it's talking about going at war, tabernacle testimony. Yeah, I don't see it so far.
Dennis, you know where that scripture is. I know you do.
Yes.
Yeah, it's number 10, verse 9. I believe 9 or 10.
No, it's just talking about blowing the trumpets when you assemble the assembly. It's not talking about the new month or anything. Yeah, that's not talking about the new moon.
I wrote a song about it. It says that blow the trumpets on the new moon, which is the
Yeah, that's Psalms 81. We already went to that one. That's Psalms 81.
It also said, blow your trumpets on your new moons and feast days.
yes.
Yep, we went through that one already. That was in Psalms 81 verse 3.
Yeah.
So we already went through that one. Let me just see here. Yeah, I got a couple more actually from First Chronicles. Yeah, where they really start talking about is in the prophets actually. Second Kings chapter 4 verse 23. So 2 Kings chapter 4 verse 23 says, "And he said, Wherefore will you go to him today? It is neither new moon or Sabbath. And she said, It shall be well." So that was 2 Kings chapter 4 verse 23. I have another one, First Chronicles. Let's see here. Hold on, First Chronicles. I just lost my place here. Okay, First Chronicles chapter 23 verse 31. So First Chronicles chapter 23 verse 31, which says, "And to offer all burnt sacrifices unto Yahuwah in the Sabbaths and the new moons and on the feast by number, according to the order commanded unto them continually." Basically, continually can mean forever, depending on the context, before Yahuwah. So if you look at, now I'm curious to see what the Septuagint says instead of continually. Oh yeah, same thing, continually. Okay, so this probably means forever. Like a statue continually is probably perpetual would be same type of word. Then you have 2 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 4, which says, "Behold, I also his son am building a house to the name of Yahuwah my Elohim, to set apart it to him, to burn incense before him, and to offer showbread continually, and to offer up whole burnt offerings continually, morning and evening." So, sunrise, sunset. "And on the Sabbaths, and at the new moons, and at the feast days of Yahuwah our Elohim." This is a perpetual statute of Yashrael. Okay, the last verse. Okay, Sister Sadie, it was First Chronicles chapter 23 verse 31 was the previous. I just read 2 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 4, which talks about to perpetually offer showbread to Yahuwah, to consecrate building the temple again to Yahuwah, and it talks about burning incense before him continually, morning and evening, so sunrise, sunset, and at the new moon's feasts and at the Sabbaths. So that was 2 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 4. And then to stay in 2 Chronicles, if you stay here, you go to chapter 8 verse 13 in 2 Chronicles. "According to the daily rate, to offer up sacrifices according to the commandments of Moshe on the Sabbaths and at the new moons and at the feasts, 3 times in the year, at the feast of unleavened bread and at the feast of weeks and at the feast of tabernacles." So, and then let's see. So that was 2 Chronicles chapter 8, verse 13, and it talks about offering up sacrifices according to the commandment of Moshe. That's an important part of this verse. So the law of Moshe, or the law of Yahuwah, included this, basically included doing these sacrifices on the new moon, the first day of the new month. So that's basically what it's saying in 2 Chronicles 8:13. We're missing something from, our Torah, basically, that we have today. Because it's literally saying this, and this is in the prophets, technically. This is the times of Ezra and stuff like that. This is, for it to say it here, and then you can't find it in Leviticus 23 or Deuteronomy or anything. So there's something missing from the Torah. And then you got 2 Chronicles chapter 31, verse 3. I'm trying to do a speed round right now because we only got about 9 minutes left of this study. So, and the king's portion, so 2 Chronicles chapter 31, verse 3. And the king's proportion out of his substance was appointed for the whole burnt offerings, the morning and the evening one. So again, morning and evening, sunrise, sunset, and the whole burnt offerings for the Sabbaths and for the new moons and for the feasts that were ordered in the law of Yahuwah. So why don't we have that in the law of Yahuwah? You should be asking yourself that. What's going on here? Like, why is it's talking about this, but yet we can't find it? So here we go. You got actually the book of Ezra, not to be confused with the Apocrypha of 3rd and 4th Ezra. This is the regular book of Ezra in your canon. Chapter 3, verse 5 says, and after this, the perpetual whole burnt offerings, Ezra chapter 3, verse 5. And after the perpetual whole burnt offering and the offering of the season, for the season of new moon, and for all the set apart feasts to Yahuwah, and for everyone that offered a free will offering to Yahuwah. So this is another part of the commandment of the law of Yahuwah. So basically it's a forever statute, perpetual, that they are supposed to offer offerings of the season of the new month, the new moon, the feasts, all the feasts of Leviticus 23, and and that's pretty much Ezra chapter 3, verse 5. And the last one I have on this page is Nehemiah chapter 10, verse 33. And let's see here. The showbread and the continual meat offering and the continual whole burnt offering of the Sabbaths, of the new moon, of the feasts, and for the set apart things and the transgression offerings, to make atonement for Yashrael and for the works of the house of our Elohim. So again, it's talking about the continual meat offerings and for the continual whole burnt offerings and the Sabbaths, the new moons, and the feasts. So 3 different appointed times, all are supposed to have whole burnt offerings and meat offerings on those days to make atonement for Yashrael for the works of the house of Yahuwah. So basically, back then in Levitical priesthood, they had sin offerings, specific offering for transgressions to make atonement. So that's what Nehemiah chapter 10, verse 33 is saying. I'm just going to check real quick and make sure there's no other ones here. Okay, so it says Isaiah. We might have to do part 2 here. I didn't even realize there was that many more. So we got Isaiah chapter 1, verse 13. Though you bring fine flour, so Isaiah chapter 1, verse 13. Though you bring fine flour, it is vain. Incense is an abomination to me. I cannot bear your new moons and your Sabbaths and the great day. Now, the great day is probably referring to the last great day of the feast, tabernacles. Mm-hmm. So, again, Yahuwah's not saying he's not saying he hates his feast. He's saying that there's obviously a context to this chapter.
The way they're doing it.
It's the way they're doing it. Either one or two things. Either they're doing it completely wrong, they're doing it in a pagan way, or the latter, which in my personal opinion, they were doing it as a way to make up for them living sinful lives. And kind of like how Christians will go to church once a week and, they'll think it's okay to go to church, and then they'll be going to the club, the nightclub, the night before. So it's kind of like the same adage of, I can sin all I want as long as I do these vain commandments. As long as I just, as long as I keep his feast days, I keep his Sabbaths, I can steal, kill, murder, not honor my dad and my mom, but as long as I keep the Sabbaths and his appointed times, I'm fine. That probably was their type of attitude back then. So it's very similar to Christianity. How they think, even though these are actual commandments of Yahuwah and Sunday keeping is just a tradition of man, but the point I was trying to bring up is they were keeping his feast days the right way, but they were keeping it for the wrong reasons. They were thinking that they would be all right as long as they keep his appointed times, that they could keep on sinning and keep committing idolatry and all that. So then it talks about next verse, your fasting and rest from work, talking about the Sabbath, your new moons also, in your feasts my being hates. You have become loathsome to me. I will no more pardon your lawlessnesses. So basically, Yahuwah was fed up at that point. He's like, you're living sinful lives. You're being a hypocrite, basically. You're trying to keep my set-apart days, and you're not living a set-apart life, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to do part 2, everyone. We only got about 3.5 minutes here, so I just wanted to leave at least a few minutes for if there's anything my brothers and sisters wanted to add here. We only had a couple of verses left, but we didn't have enough time to do it in this part 1. We stay tuned for part 2. We're going to be going to a couple more, one from Hosea, and that's about it. Yeah, it's a shame we couldn't fit it in. We got one more from Hosea. So stay tuned for a brief part 2. So we'll be back very shortly. Stay tuned. Shalom. All right. Here.
It's a shame we get cut off every 40 minutes.
Yeah. Let's see here.